everybody, how are you? Welcome to the webinar. This is my first webinar. I'm Lorraine McDonald and I've been presenting these around the country and now I'm doing it online, which is pretty amazing really. We've got people from all over. We've got South Australia, welcome, Victoria, welcome, ACT and my own home state, New South Wales. So it's just great to have about 100 people here. You can see me, I can't see you, which means that you can be in your jammies, which is what I might be saying later. Now with the webinar, we want to make the comment that we're going to encourage you to respond. And so we're going to ask questions, and we're going to ask you to ask questions by typing in that little chat box on your right that you can see and pressing submit. And the questions will come up here, and I will answer them as I go after I finish that little particular part that I'm talking about, and as I can, and as time permits as well. So if we get several questions that are similar kind of ideas, we won't answer each individual one, but we'll get the general idea across. We're also going to have some polls, and we're going to you'll see those pop up on your system. And so we're going to start with the poll. Here it is. And the poll will pop up and we'll ask you to answer yes or no. And then the poll will start to show up here as you participate and make your response. So that will test the system for us. So I'll just wait a minute while you're doing that. And I can see that about half of you have answered. So if the rest of you can answer, that'd be great. Then we'll know that you're all kind of ready to go. So 48% have not participated, and about 30% have participated. So that's pretty good. So those of you who have participated before, please bear with me. Now the other thing we need to just make sure you've got organised before we start is your catalogue. And we're just asking you to make sure your catalogue's available. You may have printed it off, it was sent to you and the link was sent to you. So if you've got it printed, have it near you or have it on your screen available. You may have downloaded it, or you may need to go into the Global Words website where you will see the catalogue there. So if you can, I'll give you a minute to get that sorted. We don't have a poll on this. You can just do it and perhaps test out the chat bar by saying, yes, I'm sorted, or no, I can't find it, or just go ahead anyway. Whatever you feel like answering, just to give us an idea. So some of you have it and some of you don't. Those who haven't, if you take a minute and go into the Global Words website, we will show you some on the screen, but I'll just check with the people here whether it's worthwhile you spending the time to go in and get it. So if you go into the Global Words, www.globalwords.edu.au, and that will get you into it. So if you want to take a minute and do that if you don't have it. Okay, so we're going to keep going, and hopefully you've got it there. So, Global Words. These quotes here are from a quality control or quality assurance check that we did, or our project manager Lyndon Hyatt did, and it was what was reviewed and the kind of reviews that we got back about the quality of Global Words, and we were very pleased about it because the comments were that it did address discrete disciplinary knowledge and skills, which is what we've known as rich tasks. It also picks up on the idea of critical thinking and problem solving, which has been called productive pedagogy. We've also got some deeper thinking, which we've called higher order thinking, but deeper thinking is actually more than that, as you know. And so we're quite pleased with the level of quality that Global Words has shown to be from this overseas Institute for Knowledge Management and Education in the USA, who didn't know us at all, but had a look and reviewed it for us. And if you look at the back cover of your catalogue, those of you who have it, and I don't know whether you want to put the back cover up, which is the last one, it will come up. You will see this Tim Costello quote. And he says, as you can see, if you're looking at the back cover, as a school teacher, you're in a unique and privileged position. We mightn't always think that when we're actually in the classroom, but we know inside that, you know, ourselves, that we are in a particular position of privilege to influence. He also comments that the global issues, we need Australians to become informed, responsible and active. Not just knowing and not just feeling as though it's something they should do, but actually doing something about it. And I think as we proceed, you'll see how engaging and important this resource is in terms of being lined up with English. It's engaging for students and it's engaging for yourselves. So, another poll, or no, a chat this time. So what does the term global words mean to you? If you could type a couple of words into the chat bar on the side, just keywords to respond, and I'll give you a few minutes to do that. So we've got some responses like world communication, language, used by everyone, a dialogue with the world, sustainability, understanding, diversity, whole world approach. And somebody had said global world, so that was nice to see that it's global words. We've sorted that one out, thank you. And the idea of sharing and basic needs, understanding each other. Okay, now I think the ideas that you're coming up with are absolutely spot on, and as we move through the presentation, have a think about what you thought it was and how that applies, and also how your understanding is expanded by the presentation and by having a sense of what the resource offers. So, what is Global Words? Well, the first thing, and this is in the catalogue, you can look at it later, it's a free online interactive teaching and learning resource. Free is always good, as these webinars are free. Online means, of course, as you may well be in your jammies, you look at it at home in a relaxed kind of fashion and access it at different kinds of places. You don't have to actually be in the classroom. And interactive, you will see how interactive it is, how much students as well as yourselves can engage with it and act with the actual resource itself. It is built around the Australian Curriculum English, so it is absolutely totally aligned with that. So for those states who have really started and moved into all of that, then you will see how it has supports there, it's supported. It responds to the policy outlined in Global Perspectives, which was formed in 2008, and it's a framework for global education. And so the units of work there, which are targeted, are responded to through this. And our resource targets years 3 to 8 with 12 units of work. There's a focus on literacy, and we'll also see other curricula coming in as well. And although I don't have it there, I will show you an example of science curricula. Okay, so the background. Now, if you've got your catalogue, have a look at the part of the catalogue that's on page 2. Let's have a look at some of the questions. Okay. when I'm looking at a screen, I'm looking at the questions which are on a different screen to the one that I'm looking at. So I apologise if I keep on diving in and out. Somebody made a comment about, where is she going? Well, that's where I'm going. Because I can't get the size of the print any bigger. So, the resource delivers is the first thing I want you to notice. And if you have a look at your catalogue on page 2, you will see that the resource delivers a range of dot points in that first column on the left. Can we get it up on screen? Is that possible? That might be easier. Because the middle column is general capabilities and the third column is cross-curriculum priorities. So we're just going to get it up. No, maybe not, it seems. Okay, so we can't get that up on the screen, that's all right. So we're looking at the middle column, and the middle column has 6 dot points. And if you look at the dot points that are there, you'll see that there is, the first dot points are looking at the fact that it's online, which I've mentioned. The second dot point looks at the notion that you can download and you can print resources for student work. So if you're not an online person, then you can still download, you can still print and stay with a hard copy if that suits you better. Point 3 lets you know that you can access the unit. There is information that tells you ahead what kinds of text you're going to need, so you can resource them or resource similar ones. And then point 4 is about multimodality. And if you haven't put your toe into the multimodal water, then I suggest this is a good resource to support you in doing that. And so we're going to do another poll now, because I'm not sure how many people know about multimodality, and I don't want to spend time doing it if it's not something that's going to work. That you know, saying what you know. So if you could say yes or no, that'd be great, and I could say a few words or not. And the poll's coming in. Good. So I'm looking across at the poll. It's coming up on a different screen. Okay, so there's sufficient people who'd like me to say a few words, and I'm very pleased to see that some of you do know about multimodality. And I'm just going to go back to what we were looking at. So multimodality is the notion of more than one mode in the text. It's to do with what I'm using at the moment. Obviously you've got oral mode, because I'm speaking and you're listening. You're also watching, so visual mode. And so picture books are an example of visual mode and verbal text. So they've got 2 modes in there. This is using visual text, verbal text, and an oral mode. When we're thinking about adding in music and gesture, movement, different kinds of positioning on the screen, we're looking at many modes. And so the idea is that when we're thinking about work that's online, when we're thinking about YouTube, we're looking at film, we're looking at a whole range of modes, more than just the 2 that are in picture books or the 3 that we use when we teach and that are part of this webinar and a part of any kind of presentation, including your classroom work. So what you'll find is that when we've got more than one mode, we have built-in texts into the resource which use multimodal aspects. And so you will find that the actual tasks that you're required to do will layer in support for you and support for the students in terms of working with multimodality, and you'll see assessment built in there as well. And when we get to look at the tasks, you'll see how that will happen. As well, then, to finish, explicit teaching, of course, is part of what we're doing, and we're confident that you'll find explicit teaching is supported, and of course you will find that age range, there is appropriate tasks for the age range. If we move on to general capabilities, then you will have a look at those in the centre of your catalogue, in the centre column. And these are really quite familiar to us. I don't think we've had any of our curriculums across the states that are represented here that haven't had some of these points that have not been part of their curriculum already. These are embedded in the units of work, and you will see how they operate as we go into it. They're also part of the essential learnings in Victoria, and they also go in with the New South Wales revised curriculum that's occurring here. So they're being matched, with those particular other aspects of the state's curriculum. And then we have cross-curriculum priorities. And I think you'll see when we look at these how tightly cross-curriculum priorities work with the global resources. These are on the ACARA website, and you'll see that they are very self-evident in the actual resource itself. It's worth pointing out that these are part of the Melbourne Declaration on Educational Goals for Young Australians, which was signed off by all Australian education ministers in 2008. So, if we have a look at the cross-curriculum priorities on the left of the screen, and the organisers for global words, the 4 sections for global words, you will see how they relate to each other. And that actually we've teased out in global words and taken them a little bit further. These units respond to content descriptions. And the web address, as I've said before, will allow you to access the units. Now I'm going to go into the web and just show you the home page of Global Words. So, I don't go that way, do I? I'm just going to let my assistant here set me up. Okay, so if you're looking here on the screen, or you could go into it yourself, you will see that you've got a banner at the top. You will see that you've got the different areas, and these are all live, as you can see when we touch them, when I go through them. And they're also down here. The different live moments, this changes and picks up a moment from the unit, and this is also live. And then as you come down the left-hand side, you can see, and we will go into these, supporting resources, examples of work, curriculum, professional learning, contribute and feedback, and then you've got a little bit of the kind of thing that we've been talking about up to this point in terms of what Global Words is. I'm not going to go into the website now, I'll go into it in a few minutes. So I'm going to go back to my screen. Okay, catalogue page 4, which we can't get up for you. What it does is have a look, it talks about that banner that we've just seen, which had the year and the domain of the unit. It has the title of the unit and a brief naming of resources and details of focus of the unit. And then on the second page, you've got sample images from the unit and a sample activity from the unit. And the idea we had with the catalogue was to give you a sense of how Global Words works so that it can be explained fairly easily to others and that you've got a sense of what's available in each unit of work. So if we go back into the unit now, can you do that for me again, please? Thank you. Okay, so we're going to come into junior primary. And here you'll see sustainability, refugees and migration, neighbours and Asia-Pacific neighbours, and Asia-Pacific neighbours in terms of Pacific neighbours, and Indigenous people, stories to unite us. So they're the 4 areas, and we're looking at the particular junior primary area. What you'll notice is that these appear again with upper primary, and they appear again with junior secondary. And so what you've got is rich tasks happening, because you keep on coming back and back at a deeper level and a more sophisticated level as you work through. And of course that also allows you to work with perhaps students who are more capable. You can pick up some of the areas in, say, upper primary, because it's the same kind of the same domains there, and that allows you to adjust for individual differences and diversity in terms of what students are up to in the classroom. And you might find there's some activities, of course, that work for you as well. I'm going to deal with the junior primary today, and hoping that you'll have a chance to look through the upper primary and junior secondary on your screens. So if we look at refugees and migration, words to unite us, and that should come up, I hope. Yes. Okay, so on the left column, we've got unit of work, and you can see here that what is articulated are a little advanced organiser for the text you're going to need. So this gives you a sense of looking at that. Do I have these texts? Are they in the library? If they're not, what can I use to substitute? And then you will also see here that you've got little moments, and you've got a link to Ben Fox, but you've got moments of different aspects just to give you a sense of how that works. And as well, you've got a little bit of mirror, and then if I follow this down, Australian curriculum links, and then links to the Australian curriculum English, as well as links to the general capabilities. So for example, if I want to look at critical and creative thinking, I'm taken straight into that in terms of the Australian syllabus, the Australian curriculum English. And so what we've tried to do is make the resource as easy for you as possible. You haven't got to go hunt, you haven't got to pull things together and have them all lined up. The resource should make it all available. Now, if I'm going to go back, which one am I pressing? Thank you. Just back to the, okay, now back to the PowerPoint now. I'll go back there. Can we go back to the PowerPoint? That one again. No, I'm not doing that, am I? Where are you? Oh, sorry. Right, sorry, I've hit the wrong button. I'm not allowed there, this I shouldn't be. So if we look at this column, you've got the focus. So you can decide which of these areas of focus you wish to home in on, or whether they are all part of what you're going to be covering in your unit of work, or whether there's particular parts that work for you. And then you have 4 areas, and each particular section and each domain have 4 areas. And so if you look at the first one, we're introducing the unit from 4 countries. You can see here we've got 4 sets of photographs. And if I hit child 1 photographs, for example, you can see that you have a range of photographs coming through. And then it's set up for you to either have a look at that particular child, or if you want to work with photographs, you can go through to child 2, same principle. And I'll just move quickly here, child 3. And you can see how different the countries are and how different the experiences are of these. And so you've instantly got some easily accessible work for young students. Notice too that you can print if you want to print these photographs. If you want to come back, go into the stories, each of the children has a story written for the age range, very clear. And again, it's accessible online, or you can print that out if you wanted it as a hard copy. Now, if we have a look at the photographs, which we've just kind of quickly skimmed through, you'll see here then that you can start work with the photographs if you so chose to. So you've got various, the children and observations from the photographs. What are they doing outside, inside, at home, with the family, at school? And if I click here, where it says, or click on there, I hope I haven't lost anything, Is it going to happen? It should. It's live. It's the point I'm trying to make. So, and I can see I won't be clicking anymore on that. Yes, happened. Hooray! And so this is live, and so I can type in, and so it can operate on screen, or if you so chose, you can print it up and have it as a hard copy. It can happen on the whiteboard. So you can see that there's a range of possibilities here. Now, if I'm going to go back to the previous screen, in Global Words. Okay, no, not quite that one. Yes, thank you very much. Todd, I couldn't do without Todd here. Okay, and so then if we move on down, we're guiding students through the questions. You can see you've got focus questions again. Information about the children, again, that's live. I won't go back into it again. You've got a mapping activity where you're showing a globe and a flat map of the world, so you get that ready. And you can see that the very explicit tasks there are there to guide you. If you wish to adapt, of course, you can do that. Again, you can print it out if you wish. And if we move into next, then we're going into the second section of activities for whoever you are. And again, you can see this is a kind of fairly straightforward reading lesson, but you've got links to images and symbols. You've got aspects of visual literacy showing up here. And this is very much fitting into what the Australian Curriculum English is asking to do. Definitions there, after reading, you've got ideas for choral reading, you've got a poem as a model for you, so you don't have to think of one, it's there for you. And then if you wish to go into the grammar, you can have a look at modality. And there are links which I won't click into that you can have a look at for that. And again, you can print a version of the activity or you can keep it online. If we go into the activities for Mirror, you will see that we've got that wonderful book, of course, Reproduce with Permission. Again, you can see we've got straightforward kinds of activities here in terms of prediction, but we're also looking very closely at visual literacy here. So that notion of multimodality and how we are going to read visual text is very laid out for you and articulated and supported. I'll just scroll through here because you can get the idea of this. And I'll just give you a minute. I'll leave that on screen for a minute. You're asked to go into, virtual images of Google Earth, Anzac Ridge in Sydney, the Valley of the Roses. So you can see that you're being guided into using other kinds of multimodal text. And again, you can print if you're more comfortable with that, or you can keep it online. And then we move into activities, where we have a range of activities. And this is, again, interesting because we've got the story of Van Doe. If I hit this, we go into Behind the News. I won't clip it through, but it goes live as a YouTube, as a video, sorry, a Vimeo, that shows this moment from Behind the News. And then we can come through here into the table, Fact Opinion. We've got Ban Ki-moon. And coming back into the poster activity, Freedom from Fear, and a scaffolded activity where, again, we've got some live moments here. Now, I want to make a comment about this poster and the activity that goes with it here, because it's a good example of the levels that we have worked hard to get into the resource. So if I can go back to my PowerPoint, please. Okay, so if I move on. I've had a question about the books. No, the books aren't available on the website because copyright. And it's not something that we can, just take an author's work and put it on. We've got links to ideas where we can, into ideas of lessons and things where we're able to do that. But essentially you have to resource the books yourselves as you would do with any other kind of situation. So what we were hoping that you would do is to have a go at an activity yourselves and have a look at 4 to 5 aspects of the pages. Now, if I looked at 4 to 5 aspects of the pages we've just looked at, I would have a look at that page 4, and my phrase or statement would be what in the area of the background would be common humanity and caring for vulnerable people amongst us as the area of focus. So where we've got background, phrase or the statement, they're the two that I particularly like. My literature resource that I think I would be if I had to make decisions would be mirror. I'd choose mirror over other things. My real source text, freedom from fear poster, and my favourite part of the student task is interpreting the poster by looking at images. Now, I was going to make a comment to you about the lining up of those that task, and I've just realised that I've got somehow my computer's jumped to this, so I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to move on to this. That is a sense of showing you how we have moved in the task from description to evaluation. And so you've got things which are low level moving into a higher level. And that has very carefully been graded into every one of the tasks that we've looked at. They build in terms of complexity, and they build in the level and the challenge that they ask students to participate in. Now, what's interesting is that when I look at my favourite tasks sit around description and analysis. And so I was very interested to see that, because I thought, oh, okay, that's what I was doing, and then I laid this out, and I thought, well, I'm actually sitting at this end. That's where my focus is. So maybe I need to think a bit more about these higher levels of thinking and consideration. Having said that, because when I was getting the PowerPoint ready, somebody made the comment, well, just change. And I went, no, I'm going to be honest with teachers and say, this is what I was interested in, was down at this level. Whoops. And that's the same one that is sitting on the actual website, and that can be live from Global Words. So these top levels, these first two are the ones I was interested in. But the point is, of course, unless you identify, unless you become a code breaker, and actually lead children to find, your students to find what they're looking for, they need to do that before they interpret. Now, I was working with some teachers in Darwin recently on this, and they made that comment that for their students, certainly description and analysis was a very important first step before they moved into interpretation and evaluation. But of course, they're all important. And this on the Global Words site is live, so again, you can work on it on screen, or you can print it up. But it's that level of challenge and levels of difficulties that I wanted to point out to you. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you to have a look in your particular sets of Global Words catalogues or online, and not with a partner, but unless you're with a group, select a sample unit and highlight 4 to 5 aspects of your selected page. And by page, I mean the double page, like 4 and 5 or 5 and 6. So have a think about your phrase or statement that you might highlight as something that you thought was really worthwhile, which are the literature resources. If there's a choice in real source texts, which ones would you use, which one would you select, and what's a favourite part of the student task. And then I'm going to ask you to let us know what you've been selecting here, what you've been doing. So I'm going to give you a few minutes, maybe 6 minutes, to have a look through, browse through the Global Words site, go into junior secondary, go into, away from what we've been talking about, what I've been showing you, have a look at the middle primary, have a look at junior secondary, and lead us into something else. So I'll give you a few minutes for that. Hi everybody. So we had lots of interesting comments here that have come through, and you've seen some of them as well. But before I get into responding to some of them, which will happen as I progress, you've asked some questions I intended to answer anyway. What I'd like you to do now is to type in a phrase or a statement that you selected from your area that you looked at for everyone to see. So if you were selected a phrase and it was from page 6, just put in page 6, and the phrase or the statement that you liked. If you recall, if I come back here, mine was common humanity, and then in the focus I used caring for the vulnerable people amongst us. So if you want to type in one, and that gives a sense of seeing what everybody's thinking about. I'll give you a minute to do that. So if you've got a particular phrase or statement from the actual unit, so if you're looking at the sustainability unit for years 5 and 6, what was the actual phrase or a statement from that you liked? I'll have a look at the other screen. Understand each other and the natural world. Good neighbours want to know and understand their neighbours. Responsibility and action from page 10, sustaining Earth's resources. Okay, so thank you. Thank you very much for those people. Now, we'll move on, a literature resource. So if you'd like to share a literature resource, perhaps people who didn't share the phrasal statement, which was the literature resource that you liked? If you could type that in. And somebody said Blueback's a great choice. The Tomorrow book, yes. Okay. You and Me in Our Place. Okay, so now let's have a look at the real source text, and see what ones that you like the look of there. Which ones attracted you and you think that your students would be interested in from the factual text. Yes, the mirror resource has been mentioned by a few people. The resource, looking at the real source text, which of course I can't seem to say, is a way of highlighting the range of factual texts that are available and the range of text types across each set of units and in each domain. And we have worked really hard to do that, to get different kinds of resources in terms of literature texts and quality texts, but also to get a whole range of real source texts and ones that are multimodal. And so we have Freedom from Fear poster, the IDA video, yes, story, the cartoons. Okay, so we've got a range there. Now, favourite part of the student task. Have a look at the student tasks in your catalogue. And just make a note of which little bits that you particularly like. And so if you had to select just an aspect to fit in with some teaching, that's what you'd select. And we have different texts, the idea of reading, locating, brainstorming, viewing, comparing artists' views of the world, cartoon perspectives of different people, Australia and the Pacific clothes activity. Yes, I had a discussion in Darwin about that clothes activity, and I'll make the point here as well that we got into quite a discussion about the role of clothes and how often it's an underrated activity. And of course what it does is, I suppose, reflect or simulate what happens when students come to a word they don't know. And of course in the close it's a blank. Now if it's a judicious close, which the ones in the resource are very carefully selected and worked out, it's not just every seventh word, when it's a judicious close, students are going to, and there's also in the close a section that they can look at to select which of the words is going to work. But what they need to realise is that they have had to read forward or they've had to read back to find which is the word that fits in. And if they know that that's the strategy they're practicing, and it's a simulation of what it's meant to do when they come to a word they don't know, then the close has a lot of power. So I always think with the close, it's not just a matter of what are the words, yes, there they are, right, tick, done. It's what are the words, how did you know? What was the clue in the sentence that let you know which of the words you needed to select there? And sure, it's context, but it's also, and it's going to be grammatical, but it's also going to be what was the clue. And if they can realise that they can read back, reread, in other words, or they can read on and leave that one blank, then they can figure out what the word is. That's actually really pushing the strategy along. Now, I'm probably telling you everything that you know, but because of the long discussion I've had about it with other teachers, I thought it might be worthwhile to mention it here. Okay, let me see if there's any other comments. I need to move across. Using the interactive map. And generalisations, exceptions. Yes, that's interesting, the generalisations. I think you'll find if the unit has been guided through and you've worked through the unit, that although it's a challenging task, it's a task they'll be able to get to. And that's one of the things I was trying to show you with that stepped set of these. The kinds of steps that are present in this are present in every unit. So challenging, yes, we haven't moved away from challenging, but also supportive and scaffolded to get to that challenge. Okay, so underlying pedagogy. I'm hoping you see these four things in what we've looked at already, because we've wanted to give you a sense of how the Global Words resources work, and that task was intended to get you into looking at it a little bit closely. And so you've noticed the range of literary and factual text. I can see that from your comments. You've noticed how the learning and teaching activities do provide depth, and I've talked a lot about how they build in terms of scaffolding and challenging. There is explicit cross-curriculum links because that's what they're based on, and of course we are using all the language modes. Again, you can see how they've been built in. The content descriptors and elaborations are present. A lot of work on how to read visually and the idea of visual literacy, and that's related to multimodal tasks, and lots of multimodal sites are there. Explicit models are there. We haven't wanted to talk down to teachers. We've wanted to give an outline of a really clear unit of work, and somebody asked about how long their units of work would take, and we were thinking 5 to 6 weeks if everything was done in the unit of work. I'm going to show you an example in a minute of a teacher who just dipped in and took a little bit of it. But the idea is that there's explicit models for you if you're not confident, and for the students. If you are confident, you can obviously adapt, change, say I'm not going to do that bit, or I'm going to approach it a different way because that'll work with my students. But if you're not sure it's a new area for you, we've wanted to support you. And you'll do cross-curriculum links with geography, and I should have SOCI up there as well in terms of the curriculum. Thinking about the 3 strands of the national curriculum: explicit teaching of language, learning about language, learning through language. That has been essential in the way we've thought about language in relation to this unit. That every one of the units is learning about the role of language, and there is language work built into every unit, and of course they're using language, and we have really tried to move into the notion of them using language to synthesise, analyse, and to compose their own text following models. The literature is superb, it's quality, it's award-winning, it's current. There's a range of literary text types, and there's a whole range of areas that we've drawn the literature from. We've been asked about will the resources be updated? I'm going to talk about this again when I come to contributions and feedback, but I will say at the moment, this resource was developed through a grant from AusAid when we put in a project with PETAA, Primary English Teaching Association Australia, and World Vision put in a project to get this resource going. And of course that costs money. And we've paid teachers to write the units, we've paid reviewers to review, and I'm one of the reviewers. We've had linguists, we've had literature experts, we've had web experts looking at the units to make sure they are the absolute best that we can make available. So if you can give us feedback saying we need more resources, we need to update, and you keep telling us that you do that, and we've got the records of you using global words, well, then we've got something to go to AusAid again and say, excuse me, can we have more money please, because we need to upgrade these resources and make them more current. And so in a couple of years, that's something that certainly could happen. But it can't happen unless we've got your kind of support in that. Explicit teaching of literacy. Again, I'm just really repeating things I've said before, but that notion of interrogating values and attitudes, you'll notice that there is critical literacy built into the units, that there is a range of listening and speaking opportunities and a lot of collaborative learning opportunities. And the fact that you can work online, move away from online, move back into online and engage with the resource, I think you'll find is a way of setting up different kinds of literacy responses. And of course, one can't not talk about assessment. As we've gone through, you'll find that the tasks lend themselves to assessment. You can see the kinds of tasks that are there, and you can see how embedded in each unit assessment of the learning that they've done as they're learning and for learning is all available to you. And any of those tasks can be adjusted or can be used as an assessment, particularly when, well, not only particularly, but after they've been modelled and practiced, then that would be something that they could do. Okay, now before we get back into the thank you and the questions which are coming through, I'm going to go back in line because there's a couple of other things I want to show you, including a teacher's unit of work that's up there in the contribution. So if we can get back into the home page, please, Todd. Not quite home page yet. So work out which one of these it is. I'm glad Todd's doing this and not they. I feel so far away from it, Warren. Almost there. We can't do the usual tab because of the way that the webinar is set up. One more, that's it, beautiful. Thank you. Okay, and so supporting resources. If I come into this, you will see that there is a whole range of online supporting resources here. And this is one of the areas that you can see has been set up for you, so you can see what is there. So if I hit digital stories, you'll see that you've actually got you've got links and how things work and how they've been set up there and the various aspects that they are creating. Can we go back? I won't hit another one of those. Down the bottom. Beautiful. No, not quite. Yes. We can download and print versions of work, which again, I won't, you can see these are all live, but I won't touch them because it'll just, you don't need to, you can explore these yourselves. And you'll see also that we've got interactive whiteboard units. Understanding modality is one that's been set up, and there are spaces for the others as they get developed. They are still being developed because they're building on what's happened before. So this is a really watch this space section. Okay, there's various PETAA resources, and so you can click into those. You can download and print, as you can see here. You can see a broader range for global citizenship if you want to take it further. And if we move now into the student work samples. Now this is where we would really like your contributions, because if you can take a section and contribute to this section, this would be terrific, and I will show you how it happens. What we have here is a classroom contribution, which a friend of mine did when I called her and said, help, can you give us some contributions, please? We need to look at this for global words because we'd like some examples for teachers. And she said, when do you need this? And knowing me, of course, I said yesterday. And within a couple of weeks, she worked with a science unit that she was working with her year 4 students. And she used materials from Taking Care of Earth Together. And so this is what she wrote. On our Year 4 class, is doing the science unit for primary connections entitled Material World Stage 2, Natural and Processed Materials. And she linked in with the Global Words Unit Sustainability, Taking Care of Earth Together. They worked in groups and they carried out experiments using plastics, fabric, paper, etc., from the Primary Connections page 18. They observed findings. And then they discussed the need of reusing or recycling, looking at plastic, and they viewed and discussed the story of stuff, which came from the resource, and you can click on that and you get it. And so then the students researched the advantages and presented PowerPoints for their printed work. And they printed their work in PowerPoints. Is this going to happen? Yes, it is. Excellent. And so you can see some of the units which she sent in and we were able to post. And don't you love all those exclamation marks? How typical of 4th grade. And another one where the exclamation marks happen at both ends. And so you can see how it's been made here, and we're moving into a discussion here of plastic and what is bad, and the students have put these together, and then what is good. I think that's the last one. So that's just an example of some of the work that they were doing in their groups. Then she moves on and said that they looked at the poem, linked with the Global Words Unit, The Earth is Crying, and they discussed it. A choral reading was performed. They practiced in groups, responded to the question, why are you using this style of expression? And of course the point was there, how are they interpreting it? What are they foregrounding in their voices? What are their reasons for doing what they're doing? So it's reinforcing that whole unit of work. She's given us a sense of the set of questions that revolve next. She brainstormed the problems the writer sees with the world. She read Just a Good Dream because she couldn't get the Tomorrow book, and so she substituted and discussed the future, and they went into the comics that are part of the resource. Then they worked in groups using recycled paper and newspaper to make collages. And her final comment was, using the Global Words site gave me an immediate easy link to my science unit. The material was appropriate to the student's level. I was able to dip into it and take bits I felt I could use or adapt parts to suit the unit. It was a great enhancer to my unit. I didn't have access to the Tomorrow book straight away, so I just replaced it with a similar book. And you can see it's March. So students were at the beginning of the school year. It was their first science unit they were working into, and she, as a favour to me, she is an experienced unit, is an experienced teacher, and she is used to my requests, and so she was able to do something that was very valuable, and she did love the work as well. She loved their resource as well. Okay, so how do you do this? Well, you come in to contribute, and you can set it up if you come into the contribute. You've got to make sure that the materials don't contain copyright material, because obviously we can't use that, as we can't download the books. And you can see a Facebook and a feedback, which I'll come back to in a minute. And then you've got a contact, email, your message or the sample of work or the unit. and you can do this, and then you enter the field and you send. And then we'll take it over from there and set it up. And so that would be really appreciated if you can dip in, whether you take a whole unit or a part of a unit, and have a go and put it up there. And this is where you send feedback saying, we love this unit, can you please send us more resources, and please, we need new texts, we need this, we need that. The only way we will know is if you tell us what you think. We've also got a little survey here that we'd be, and I won't go through it, that we'd like you to answer as well, which we'd appreciate knowing about it. But we would certainly like you to send some feedback regarding what you need. So if I come back here, obviously Australian Curriculum English, if I hit that, you'll know about that. And professional learning, well, we're now in the end of our professional learning run, but certainly if you contacted Primary English Teaching Association, if you want some more insight with your school, then please contact us and we can work something out. I think they're the main things I want to look at there. Okay, so I think we're now at the point of, are there any, oh, I know, there's one other thing I wanted to look at, and I think it's in supporting resources, where we have the section, no, I know where it is, somewhere else. There's a section which tells us how you can, no, I've looked at that one, haven't I? That lays out every year and all the units on a grid. Now, I don't know if it's on the Australian Curriculum Result. Curriculum. Is it? Okay. I'll see if it's in this one. I've just been hinted at that it might be this one. Ah, yes, it is. Thank you very much. The one I didn't hit was it. Okay, I'll hit the all years. This, I think, is one of the most brilliant things. So what you have here is, all the way through, of course, and we'll look at Year 5 for a change, is language, literature and literacy. Here you've got the actual unit that is being used in terms of a language variation and change. And the code up here tells us that, IP is Indigenous people, if I can get the code up. Neighbours is N, refugees and migration R, sustainability S. So as I said, if I come down to Year 5 just to vary, so you've got language for interaction. You can see here you've got a lot of Indigenous people work. Over here you've got some neighbours work. Notice that it isn't all the way through for everyone. You can see where the emphasis lies. And so if you hit one of these, you'll find that you will go straight in to look at Year 5 creating, straight into the unit. And so that allows you to think, well, I'm going to, this is what the area I need to work on, and so go into the unit and it's laid out for you. Okay, now if we can go back to the end, to my last slide, what I'm asking you now is, are there some questions? And so I've asked the question, how do we send student work? Yes, the comment was made here, as has been made with other people, is foundation to Year 2 resources. Well, again, our brief was years 3 to 4, 5 to 6, 7 to 8, and we went with the briefs that we were given by AusAid. They obviously don't, or rather they're not aware of how clever these little people can be. So again, feedback we need from you, requesting these things. That's the only way that we're going to be able to support you in that way. Are there any other questions? If you could type questions in, that would be great. Type them into the chat box. Oh, I don't know, that doesn't make sense. Type them into your chat box or type so that I know that they're done. So they're there. Let's have a look at some questions. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to lean over. Per week, look, that's a tricky one to answer because the question is how many lessons per week would they cover? Depends on your focus, and I think it's how long is a piece of string. If you're looking at the whole unit being about 4 to 5 weeks, then you would gauge across, and you might decide to do it as part of your sustainability focus, or you might decide to do it as your literacy and use sustainability as the content. So if it's literacy, it's going to be happening every day. In other cases, it might be happening 3 times a week. So I don't know if I can answer that. And you also may choose to adapt. And so I'm going to take this little part of it, as my friend Mary did with the science curriculum. I'll have a look and see if there's any other questions. It's global words. So the question is, are they designed for HESI or SOCI or cross-curriculum or English? They are designed for English. The intention is the teaching of English and global citizenship. Partly because you really can't teach anything without literacy and language anyway, and incorporating literature into that is a very good way of getting the literature into a context which will enhance understanding of the literature. So that comment, I know my students used to say at tertiary level, oh, we're not going to do English in our program for another unit, not my unit, of English, because we're going to do maths. And I'd say, okay, so you're not going to do any speaking, listening, reading or writing or viewing in your maths. Okay, fine, that'll be interesting. How are you going to teach it? And so they got to see that literacy is in every subject. So it was one way of getting through the bulk of what literacy is. And for those of you who are secondary and who work in different curriculum areas, other than, you know that you've got a responsibility to do literacy and language in your curriculum area. So this is an entry into it that will support you in very meaningful ways to do that. The geography teachers, there's a note that's just come through which says the Geography Teachers Association highly endorses global words, and they're waiting for the finalised syllabus to see how the perfect matches can be. So it sounds as though they may well be setting up a situation where the geography work will be aligned more closely with the resource. So any other questions? Well, any final comments then? Anything you'd like to say to us? Any suggestions? Any comments at all? And maybe some thoughts on how you might use it that you could share before we finish. We're very proud of our resource. We worked long and hard on it. We've involved a lot of people have been involved and a lot of going back and forth with it. We were very committed and World Vision have been a very close part of it and have looked and vetted, so to speak, everything that we've done. But we've managed to combine, we think, the best of 2 different areas to produce something that's very strong and engaging, as I said earlier at the beginning of the webinar. And we think that students will find it engaging, as will teachers. Your feedback's coming in very positively and I appreciate that. And the resource appreciates it too. We'd like you to share it with other people that you know. That's one of the things about the catalogues, is the catalogue can sit on the staff room table and you're the expert who knows how it works. And it's a way of saying, look, have a look, because this is exactly how it looks. These are from the resource. Dive in, have a look at it, and play with it. And the fact that it's free is important. Part of our brief was that we would go out and speak in every capital city and we would set up these webinars so that people had as much access to it as possible. And so we're fulfilling that brief, and we're at the end of that brief, we're sorry to say. Okay, well, I think we'll sign off. If there's no more questions, I'll count to 4 in my mind. So thank you. Sorry about the dipping and weaving of the head, but we decided to screen share, which means that I couldn't actually see your questions on the screen. So I've been working with about 3 computers here. I've enjoyed the webinar, and I hope you have. and all the very best with using global words, and take care. Bye-bye.